Thank you very much. So yeah, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today presenting, and I am here to talk about leveraging Matomo for cutting-edge business-to-business programmatic marketing, and we do that in our business FunneFuel. So before I dive into kind of what we're doing, just a quick introduction to myself. So my name's Mike Harty. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer at FunneFuel. I've spent the last 14 years or so in the advertising and marketing technology space. I've dedicated my career to building solutions that drive measurable impact for brands in the programmatic ecosystem. And as co-founder of FunneFuel, our mission is to elevate B2B marketing through innovative technology. Our mission is to close the gap between the capabilities that exist in the marketplace for business to consumer marketing and kind of bridge that gap for business to business. And in my role as chief product officer, my remit really is developing cutting edge tools and strategies to address the more unique challenges around measurement, identity, and targeting in B2B. So I'm excited today to talk to you all and share how FunneFuel's hopefully leading the way in transforming programmatic marketing for B2B. And in particularly how we use Matomo as one of our foundational technologies as part of our technology strategy. So yeah, jumping forward to kind of what we do as a business to lay the scenes in terms of this talk today. So FunneFuel is a B2B programmatic trading business. And my next slide, I'll cover what programmatic means. And I definitely don't want to be in danger of leaving anyone behind in terms of some of the terminology that lives around the kind of programmatic ecosystem. But we're a UK founded business headquartered in central London with a team of 13 counting professionals split between the UK and now emerging into North America. We are entirely dedicated to business. We're in that one singular swimming lane where all of the challenges that we're facing and all the problems that we're trying to solve and all of our use cases around Matomo are upskilling everything in the ecosystem that we live within to really work for the modern day B2B marketer. And just so that we're all entirely on the same page, when we're talking about business to business, we're talking about companies that sell their products and services to other businesses as opposed to directly to the consumer. So an example I like to give is Boeing, who sell their aeroplanes to a whole bunch of airline companies like Air France, British Airways, Qatar Airways. And unlike B2C, where marketers or marketing targets individual consumers, B2B involves a more complicated, longer, protracted sales cycle with multi-layered decision making across typically teams or universes of people. And often B2B can get into pretty deep and dark niches, which is where we find our focus on the premium contextual web is really powerful because it's an environment where people go to research and to learn. And from a technology point of view or a technology philosophy, the view that I've tried very hard to kind of push through our business is that our approach is to build on top of proven best-in-class technology, to utilize kind of, again, best-in-class open source tools, which is very much where Matomo comes in, and to build around established best-in-class advertising and marketing technology. And a phrase that people get bored of hearing me say is that, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to rebuild what has been fantastically built already. When that technology exists, that's not an agitation point in the industry or in any industry. If best-in-class technology exists and is working fine, our technology philosophy is where can we find maybe kind of gaps in capability, or maybe where a platform hasn't been purposed for B2B or for B2B marketing, but can be pulled in and kind of connected into the ecosystem that we've built. that allows us to customize these solutions, aim to fill in specific gaps, again, pertinent to B2B, and to really kind of allow us to get to a position where, as a business, this strategy allows us to leverage robust existing tech while focusing on innovation in areas where there are gaps rather than kind of what already exists. And obviously, kind of today we're talking about the context of Matomo, and that's kind of a brilliant case study in our business. So again, before we go too much deeper, and to make sure that hopefully I'm not in danger of leaving anybody behind, just a slight kind of deviation into kind of what is programmatic advertising. So programmatic advertising is the automated buying and selling of predominantly digital ad placements, and again, historically in the context of kind of banner and display advertising. So the whole process is essentially outsourcing the buying and selling of ad placements to technology and algorithms, which all happens within a very quick micro 120 millisecond programmatic auction. It's a bidding-based mechanic. So in a simple, crude term, it has kind of comparables to auction houses like eBay, where you're going on and kind of bidding to buy a good. So in this case, you're bidding to buy an ad placement. And much like an eBay auction might have a floor price against it, so often will a digital ad placement. And essentially what we're aiming to do is to use layers of data and knowledge about an ad placement and historic performance around an ad placement, and all of the wide data which is given back to us through the technology, which will be telling us the publisher or the app where the ad impression is available, the floor price, the context of the page, the device, make, model, operating system, the web browser. All of this type of foundational data is given to us, and our job as a business is to identify and price, bid, and then pace and deliver ad impressions into these environments based on the data that's given to us, and then the data that we've got in our business, which is coming across the data we're capturing with Matomo, the data that we're getting in our historic kind of bidding logs and databases and the likes. So B2B programmatic advertising is entirely focused on delivering highly targeted, data-driven advertising campaigns across, now increasingly in 2024 and beyond, a much more diverse range of channels. So addressable programmatic advertising is now covering not just banner display advertising, but also new formats, which includes connected television, so bringing kind of the old worlds of media into the new age of addressable digital, digital out of home, audio, so podcasts and kind of digital radio and the likes, video in general, all the online formats. It's all wrapped up in the ecosystem and the world that we operate in from an addressable point of view. And for us on my slide here, you'll see that I've got the Matomo logo underneath 3 out of the 4 pillars here of programmatic, and the only one that I do not have it under is the actual bidding and buying mechanics. So for us, Matomo plays a role across a whole bunch of the programmatic elements that kind of sit behind our business. Because when we're talking about data-driven personalization and delivery of ad creatives and messaging, the objective of those ads is typically to drive awareness, to be seen on a web page or in a digital environment, and then to be engaged with and ideally be clicked historically, particularly thinking about the banner advertising that we kind of cut our teeth around. So when this happens, this for us directly feeds data into our use of Matomo, which, because obviously click events are driving traffic to client websites, whereby we're aiming to deploy the Matomo pixel and collect data. And that is allowing us to kind of gather a lot of on-site data around engagement and kind of what happens after a click event to build a much more detailed, thorough and complete picture of what's happening. And we feed all that back into our programmatic buying engine, and that has an impact on which ads we might show to somebody next, creative storytelling, journeying, and all that type of fun stuff. Matomo obviously also plays a big part in our multi-channel strategies, because really at its core, marketing boils down to measurement and attribution, which is where we're using Matomo. So for marketing to be done right in a data-driven scientific manner, then attribution is kind of everything, really, like a really significant part of the journey. And this is somewhere where social media advertising has been so strong over the years, and digital content-based advertising, the open internet's been weaker because there hasn't been such a tight attribution and measurement journey. So multi-channel attribution and Matomo across all these different channels is super interesting. Matomo helps us build a more accurate attribution model, incorporating locational data, other signals, macros coming out of our ad creatives and the likes, to really understand engagement and user behavior on a client website, but triggered by potentially a whole diverse range of different ad formatting. And Matomo plays an absolutely critical part in our integrated reporting at FunneFuel too. So Matomo enables us to align what I always call as media metrics, or kind of ad campaign metrics, which are things like how much money have I spent on my ads, how many clicks has those ads delivered, how many impressions, what's the cost of the clicks, all that type of data is all media data. But we utilize Matomo in order to also marry that data up with post-click analytics, i.e. the data that we're all familiar with, which Matomo's collecting. That provides an end-to-end insight loop, or a 360-degree journey that we could take clients on. And for us, with a very key part of our business being account-based marketing, or going out and targeting deliberate lists of named accounts or companies that our clients want to go talking to and delivering their marketing to, Matomo has enabled us to have a best-in-class, completely differentiated level and depth to our reporting, which simply wouldn't be possible without this kind of collaboration that we've got with Matomo. So that's kind of a super kind of key part of kind of what we're doing and how Matomo is feeding into programmatic. So with Matomo, in essence, we can deliver a more personalized, multi-channel campaigns and provide reporting that demonstrates real impact, not just fluffy metrics. And that sets FunneFuel apart in the B2B space. So when we were starting the FunneFuel business back in the tail end of 2020, fun year that was, obviously kind of deep in the pandemic, we quickly identified 3 key challenges that we believed were pertinent to the whole kind of B2B programmatic marketing space. And it's probably not any major surprise to anyone that's taking part or watching or engaging in Matomo camp to see that analytics, is going to be kind of one of those big 3. And that's obviously my focus today. But then additionally to that, the other 2 pillars were targeting and transparency. So when I kind of talk about analytics, I'm definitely thinking about the broader, more B2C focus that we believed as a co-founding team, with a challenge behind B2B programmatic measurement and attribution. And really, it's an over-reliance on Google Analytics that was super pertinent in the space, kind of came up time and time again around clients that we were engaging with. And B2B marketing analytics in general just felt limited. Many companies relying on GA or other similar kind of more consumer-focused technologies. And while GA undoubtedly provides a wealth of valuable data, particularly since its migration towards GA4, it's primarily geared towards B2C, and it doesn't fully meet the unique requirements of B2B marketers. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. So we saw a need for more specialized analytics that could really offer the deeper insights that B2B clients were looking for across kind of their decision-making teams and universes of companies that they were targeting. Number 2, the targeting challenge related to signal loss and issues that do straddle the edges of analytics and measurement and reporting, like the deprecation, or what we thought this year was going to be the deprecation of the third-party cookie. Either way, third-party cookies are massively declining. They're pretty much limited down to one major web browser now with Google Chrome. The latest data I've seen is about 40% of users within Chrome are already blocking third-party cookies. So signal loss around programmatic advertising and the third-party cookie, which is fundamental to kind of audience targeting in general, remains, even if Google's kind of canned the full kind of cliff top moment of deprecation, that signal loss is still kind of a really big challenge in the ecosystem, and one that we've built solutions to help circumnavigate. And then reporting transparency and just transparency in general is a challenge still to this day for B2B and programmatic marketing in general. So a lot of kind of black box technology exists out there, really, which provides only high level reporting as opposed to kind of a really zoomed in view that clients are looking for. So in theory, for example, you might be able to target specific B2B audiences in some of the biggest and best ad buying platforms in the world, but you can't really see which companies have been engaging with your ads, who's viewed, how much attention they paid, or what actions they've taken afterwards. So these kind of three challenges really work in concert from our point of view, to identify the problems that we saw when we're starting FunneFuel. So as we were getting the business going, the first challenge that we sought to overcome was the measurement, attribution, and analytics challenge. So we've been users of Matomo for a number of years now, in the ecosystem, really leaning into the open source community and technology, leaning into the kind of Matomo internalized support capabilities and kind of extra applications and toys in the toy box, as I see it, that have been built both internally and externally to the Matomo team, but whilst kind of taking control of that infrastructure and bringing some of my team's experience hosting advertising exchanges and just tremendously high volumes of ad impressions. We've kind of taken some of those learnings into Matomo and kind of jumped in 2 feet first, really, into the deep end of the pool with Matomo. And this is why, really. So the major problem, B2B analytics is not fit for purpose. Big kind of crude statement, but one that I definitely stand behind. Because ultimately, analytics is absolutely critical to marketing. At the end of the day, analytics serves as the measurement source of truth behind any advertising strategy, B2B or otherwise, but also most definitely for B2B. And again, as I've already touched on, in B2B, the more traditional forms of analytics solutions like GA are surprisingly limited, and it becomes a paradox. It's a paradoxical given that the importance of reliable, objective data is key for making strategic decisions, but that's kind of lacking. So you've got kind of pillar one, it's critically important. Pillar two, it's kind of completely lacking. That's really why we jumped into analytics as our kind of first touch try and fix. And in terms of specific issues that we'd identified and which remain the case today, and which on my next slide I'll show how Matomo helps fix, is a whole gluttony of challenges in that analytics space. So we've got, for example, privacy compliance, not one of my 4 pillars here, but one that really should be. Many analytics platforms operating again in black box are raising privacy compliance concerns. GA's kind of got links to kind of cookie requirements and cookie consents to function, can leave big gaps in reporting, which is a major challenge when you're trying to kind of determine your click to land ratio from the ad campaigns that you're running, and then what happens afterwards. You can't see kind of clicks going missing and rely on that. And GA's faced a lot of scrutiny in various regions around the world over privacy compliancy. And when you're working with some of the biggest and best B2B brands in the world, who are naturally incredibly privacy suspicious and sensitive and careful, we have to start out by kind of looking at privacy compliance, and that led us to Matomo's kind of front door, so to speak. And then the data sampling issue, the kind of yellowy box that I've got on the top left quadrant, it actually shocked me when I learned that GA was so heavily into data sampling and modeling, and particularly around kind of low traffic sites from the data that I've seen. So then you're suddenly operating in a world of missing, incomplete and non-objective data, which is a major challenge. And I think it's particularly problematic in B2B, in all honesty, because B2B websites as a whole are lower volume of traffic, but with very high value visitors. So you could be operating a website that's only really counting its web sessions in the hundreds a day or even a week, but 1 or 2 out of those hundreds could be CEOs of major prospects that you've been trying to win on a 2 or 3 year sales cycle. And I just think it's a dichotomy where in B2C consumer world, where you've got massively scaled news websites, for example, it's objectively probably fine to be sampling in those environments. Not ideal, but the value of those web environments is in the aggregate of the big volume of traffic that they've got, rather than the nuances of the zoomed in, smaller kind of icing on the cake kind of users. But in B2B, it's just absolutely critical that when we're kind of getting these limited kind of web sessions where the value of them could be in, the hundreds of millions or even the billions of dollars. If you think about my Boeing example, and if the CEO of British Airways is going on the Boeing website right now and is kind of gearing up to make an order of scores of aeroplanes, then, I'd rather not be guessing and sampling around that kind of hugely high value web session. And I'd rather be dealing with kind of fact personally. And I think a lot of the B2B market would kind of stand to that too. So that inherently non-objective sample data is a huge problem. And then you've got, kind of other issues too. You've got the lack of a company view. So I've got here in the red quadrant the idea of decision-making teams. In B2B, while there will, at the end of the day, be one single stakeholder who might sign the check or the contract, you have typically got a big universe of people that work, or a team of people that work with that stakeholder in order to make the ultimate decision. So in B2B, companies buy rather than individuals. You are selling to the organization and a team of individuals that sit behind that organization, which really requires a rolled up view within analytics that has the entity of company, which is a more static, longer term identifier than any one individual in any one job is ever going to be. And analytics in general just doesn't have that concept of kind of company level or account-based reporting. And that was kind of a major gap that we'd identified from kind of day one. And then you've got my orangey box, the idea of bias or black box technology. Not to constantly sound like I'm bashing Google, but when you are running a multi-billion advertising business spanning YouTube, a paid search business, display ads that you're trying to make look really good from an attribution point of view, and then you're marking your own homework with your own home built kind of analytics solution, Google Analytics, you've inherently got a lot of opportunity for bias. And to showcase your own solutions, which are the highly lucrative, kind of fuel that goes into that alphabet Google engine, funding all the fun projects that come off the back of that business. It's fundamentally funded by a massively profitable search marketing business and a very profitable kind of publishing display business. And one of the biggest kind of search engines behind Google in the world is YouTube, with all that video content that has a massive ad business behind it too. There's real reason to be concerned, and at least to feel like a more objective third-party technology could be involved. And then finally, that no B2B data, it does link obviously with decision-making teams and what I talked about, but there are typically no B2B attributes like firmographics, company identifiers, job roles, nor the ability to get that data into a lot of non-customizable, non-open framework analytic solutions and black box businesses, which just means you can't fix the problem even if you've identified it. So all of this and all of these limitations in concert or working together create a paradox. Analytics is supposed to provide clarity and objectivity, yet for B2B, it often actually introduces bias and hinders campaign precision and monitoring and attribution. So addressing this gap is at the heart of the FunneFuel mission that we put together, and it's at the heart of the work that we do with Matomo to help us solve that challenge. So if I skip forward into my slide 7, here I'm just looking at kind of where Matomo starts to become the major solution that helps solve a lot of these challenges. So having seen those kind of strong and very real limitations with traditional analytics, we knew that a better solution was necessary for effective B2B marketing. And this led us to Matomo, the open source platform that it is. And it stood out to me from day one, and I was running a big audit of all the kind of comparable solutions I could find out in market. And I felt that Matomo would give FunneFuel a technology platform that we could iterate and build around and fulfill that technology mission I outlined earlier in my talk. A platform that Matomo is with really robust privacy set up from day one. The work done with the European Commission stands out. Some massively kind of privacy-centric organizations use Matomo. I believe it's over 1 million websites globally. So that privacy compliance and the commitment to privacy that Matomo has displayed really kind of forcibly and objectively kind of got us through the front door. Matomo for me provides a privacy-aware, compliant technology foundation that I've built the FunneFuel technology stack around. So it's kind of critical for me. And then, unlike Google Analytics, you're swapping out data sampling for 100% data capture. That 100% data capture comes with log-level data. It comes with kind of profiling that doesn't entirely rely on third-party cookies. The idea of cookies and other tracking methodologies working in concert sits at the heart of kind of what we try and do as a business around identity, which I could fill a whole extra talk talking about, but I won't digress into right now. So for us, that detailed advanced profiling capabilities ties into the idea of the long sales cycle that B2B has. And it marries up with the top right-hand side, the idea of how do we overcome the lack of company data, or the fact that Matomo's got cookie and cookieless tracking capabilities, but also resolves the IP address, allows me to start overlaying a great big chunk of the FunneFuel database that we've got. And overlaying a load of company level and firmographic level data and putting that into the Matomo framework in order to start overcoming that kind of lack of a company as a persistent identifier in B2B. And then rather than having our biased black box technologies that are out there, we've instead got a compliant, objective and fully transparent, but also third-party to FunneFuel framework that we could use to build our measurement and attribution and reporting piping around, which is absolutely key. So now we've got to a position where we've got all the data, we've got company as an identifier, we're compliant, we're objective, we're transparent, and then we've got the open source flexible framework with the custom dimensions that we use to bring that kind of data in. So now we're in this world where we've got company level insights, where in B2B, companies are the primary customers, not the individual users. So Matomo's ability to work with both cookie derived or predicated and cookieless data and IP data gets our company data in, and then that objectivity and the open source and the APIs just allowed us to be freed from some of those black box constraints. And then additionally, I should touch on another kind of key component of the Matomo powerhouse solution for me was the APIs. So it allows us to kind of build data within Matomo, but also to extract data out via the powerful APIs. And that allows us to seamlessly connect the Matomo world with the FunneFuel world and our systems, including our user interface, enabling us to streamline that data integration and workflow and kind of put it all into our FunneFuel solution. So that FunneFuel solution, of which Matomo, you can kind of see again, is shown across the 3 kind of products that we've built in our business. So the FunneFuel platform, where Matomo plays a central and pivotal role across 3 of our key tools. So those 3 key tools are Journey, Jetstream, and Navigator. So Journey is our API-derived version of Matomo. So the closest kind of most pure play implementation of Matomo across our business is in our Journey product. We've reimagined and rebuilt the user interface, again, wearing our B2B lens, everything from kind of terminology to bits of flow to just bits of kind of UI, UX exposure, particularly to bring in kind of ad campaign details and data. I'll show you a few kind of bits of that shortly. And then we've got Jetstream, which is our proprietary audience ID graph. So Jetstream for us is where we manage and host our extensive FunneFuel B2B data layers. So that includes over 30 million companies globally. So approximately 50% of the company scale reach globally of LinkedIn. It includes a wealth of identifiers that stretch from IP addresses to hashed emails as an identifier, to mobile advertising ad identifiers, to cookies, to 45 unique programmatic signals, including ID5 and unique ID behind trade desk. So we have all of that hosted in our Jetstream data product, which seamlessly talks to Matomo. And then we've got a bit of kit called Navigator. So Navigator is an internal tool, an operations hub, if you like, for my 10 plus ad operations team that we've got in our business, who are the people who are day-to-day, minute-to-minute running our programmatic advertising campaigns. So Navigator is integrated via API, not just to Matomo, but also to a handful of the biggest demand side programmatic ad platforms in the world, including the Trade Desk and Adform. Navigator allows our team to build audiences for companies against target account lists or firmographics, to push those campaigns into a whole load of different ad buying platforms, to go buying ad impressions across all the different channels that we operate in, so across display ads, video ads, digital out of home adverts, connected television, programmatic audio, all those different channels. And then Navigator pulls that data out and presents a unified business level reporting interface, which includes Matomo data for that post-click performance. So together, all of these tools feed into a comprehensive FunneFuel user interface, which combines media data, so like ad campaign data, with Matomo data and our data business with those 30 million companies, alongside a load of benchmark data across B2B in general, because we're executing hundreds and hundreds of different campaigns across hundreds of different kind of vendor clients every month in our business. And that's really there to help our clients understand their marketing mix and how that's working in concert together to make better data-driven decisions. So talking about the Matomo advantage. So what we've done with Matomo and what I've talked about so far hopefully gives you an understanding of how we've brought Matomo to the very core of our technology solutions. And I believe that Matomo gives us some superpowers in our FunneFuel business, which has allowed us to grow the business as incredibly quickly as we have done over the past few years. And really that's because Matomo has kind of transformed FunneFuel into a powerhouse of measurement and attribution. It's given us unmatched data mobility between the buying of ads and the reporting piece, and allows us to use it in an iterative 360-degree cycle, which is a lot of fancy words to try and say that the data that we've got from the media buying will be feeding the data that we get in Matomo, and the data that we get in Matomo will then be going back around to feed the people that we go and buy ads against again, and the ads that we show them and the creatives that we show them and when we show ads to them. So it kind of forms part of a kind of a live 360-degree campaign view, which goes bi-directionally between our stacks. And some of those key benefits include, I believe the work that we've done with Matomo gives us an enhanced visibility on granular ad performance, like in other words, true post-click visibility. And I always say that most of our competitors and FunneFuel's competitors are typically advertising agencies or anybody who's going and running advertising campaigns on behalf of B2B clients. And when those competitors are going running their businesses, they're typically implementing what I call pretty dumb demand side platform pixels, which are simple scripts that will go on typically a thank you confirmation page after a positive action's happened, and the pixel either fires or it doesn't fire. It's a simple yes or no, pretty binary situation. Whereas when we deploy something as comprehensive as Matomo, we're getting so many more layers of data. Those hundreds and hundreds of metrics and dimensions of data that Matomo is collecting is then allowing my ops team to have multiple deeper layers that just give a much deeper interpretation on kind of what's working and what isn't working, and where the kind of engagement is happening once people have kind of seen one of the ads that we served and clicked on it and come to a website, how engaged they are after that click and what they're doing fuels and gives our data more data than our competitors get. And more data translates to better campaign performance, which translates to hitting client KPIs more effectively. And the solution or the technology provider that achieves those KPIs best will clearly be best placed to win bigger budgets and kind of more share of voice from that individual client. And to give you a bit of an understanding on the granular ad performance and how powerful this becomes, when we're doing programmatic advertising, we're able to buy adverts just on the display side of things on hundreds of thousands of websites globally within milliseconds of those ad placements becoming available. And we operate in a world that has literally over 1 trillion ad opportunities per day to go and sift through, sort, and kind of identify the best buying opportunities. So when you think about that on a publisher level, so if you're a B2B brand and you want to serve your ads on websites like Forbes.com and Business Insider and the biggest and best news websites and all the kind of really niche sector-specific B2B sites, we, with our implementation of Matomo, are able to understand post-click how well and how engaged the traffic is coming from each of those websites that we might go buying on. So how does Forbes compare directly to Business Insider? Or how does creative number 1 combine with creative number 2 when we buy on Forbes.com? Which one gets the biggest and most engaged post-click behavior? So if creative number 1 has got AI in it and creative number 2 has got ML in it, buying on a particular page on the Forbes website to a particular audience from a particular company, which one of those is getting the most time on site, the highest action score, the lowest bounce rates, the most engaged behavior going to high intent page views? So all of that is kind of the sort of data transformation that we get with our Matomo superpowers. And that allows, my ad ops teams to make queries of the data around kind of Forbes versus Business Insider for Boeing, which one's driving the most engaged, which one should I be buying most of, which one should I be optimizing out of an individual ad campaign. And we could do that using data like time of day, browser make, model, operating system, publisher, creative, advertising network that we're buying on. And all of this just creates a data-rich environment that really fuels, I think, the best optimization team in B2B. And that's kind of been great. And next year, we're going to be launching a product that I've codenamed Copilot. And that's going to be an optimization layer that will live within our navigator tool, which is going to be putting out all this data from Matomo and the log level data from our media buying to really give our ops team a clear kind of AI ML derived kind of toolkit, which over time will start kind of handling a lot of this optimization more directly and seamlessly by itself. Another great superpower that comes from Matomo is the segmentation tools. So in Matomo, as I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar, there's incredibly powerful tools around building segments. We build those segments in order to then do IP-based retargeting on those segments and to drop ad platform cookies and pixels. So that allows me to go and build super powerful segments on, for example, LinkedIn traffic or search retargeting based on particular keywords coming into a website or particular audiences from a number of different high performing ad vendors, or even a competitor who might be driving really good quality traffic. I could kind of build my segments against that traffic and then push it into my activation layers and my navigator tool and let my ops team go and drive much more performance kind of based on those sort of segments. And then finally, well, not finally, but of the 4 kind of big areas that we use Matomo for at the moment, we've got attribution and we've got budget justification. because we live in a world where we compete with a lot of different agencies and different technologies that could take the advertising budgets. And I touched on earlier that Google could be seen as a black box, or even a biased black box, where the attribution might weight itself towards some of the Google tools potentially, or maybe not. When we're using Matomo, we've got an objective third-party technology that can help with the 6 different attribution models that we can overlay, can really help us justify our own existence and kind of where we're adding value for clients. If we're running kind of more upper funnel, kind of early stage awareness campaigns, it can then show over that long sales cycle, that kind of flowing through to hopefully kind of positive actions afterwards. And all of this moving forward is rich with opportunity. And I know it's been a topic today. I've been listening to a number of the talks, and kind of there's been no lack of discussion around kind of AI and its kind of potential around Matomo. And I know Ronan's doing some really cool work with Query My Database and GPT pull-ins and all of that type of data. We've squarely got our eye on this world moving into next year. There's a whole bunch of at least 5 different areas that I believe AI ML can work in my business, including the way that we use Matomo. And a really big one is really getting to that point where AI models can take the nuances of all these kind of hundreds and hundreds of different metrics and dimensions, make sure that it's using statistically relevant volumes of those impressions, so it's not optimizing too quickly and zooming in too fast, but can then really help us optimize ad campaigns and find order in the chaos of all that data, which can go into the Copilot tool that I'm building to feed the ad ops team, and over time can pick up a lot more of that optimization automatically. Another really kind of cool area is how this data can then, from an AI ML point of view, start pushing into the best advertising technology in the world, which includes platforms like the Trade Desk. Trade Desk has the ability to, within its APIs, to really change the bid price that you make based on structured data that you can push in. So we're going to be pushing in a lot of learnings from kind of Matomo and post-click data to scientifically price every single bid that we inject into the market, to help ensure that we're zooming in on where we're going to get the best kind of KPIs and the best ROI for our clients. But I'm not going to talk any more about AI, ML, because I appreciate it's a topic that's been used a lot. And as I start to kind of draw to a conclusion, I just wanted to show a few visuals really around how we've reimagined and interpreted some of the data that lives in Matomo and the APIs, and how we've learned from the UI work and UX work that the Matomo team have done, and just put our own interpretation into it. So there's a couple of quick screens here where you can kind of get an idea of how we're marrying some of the data that is Matomo with some of the data coming out of the ad platforms that we go buying in, and how we aggregate all of that. So you can see here, we've got some campaign headlines that have got impressions and clicks coming from the ad buying platforms, but website lands, goals, bounce rate, average time on site, engagement score is all powered by Matomo data. And we have a lot of views that are kind of pretty similar to this. And here's a couple more. So this has kind of got some kind of cost metrics. It's got some of that publisher level performance that I was talking about. It's got some of the benchmark data that we pull from all of the instances of Matomo that we've deployed across all of our clients. And there's some views here. Anyone that's used the Matomo form analytics will be familiar with some of the data, like form viewers, form starters and submitters. Some of the real-time map views for landing and the likes is all data kind of coming out of Matomo. And conscious of time, I think I've got about a minute left. So if I may, please forgive a soft sales pitch of sorts, but kind of what working with FunneFuel looks like, or where it could be interesting, is if you're a publisher with B2B audiences, then some of our tools could most definitely help you identify and zoom in on some of those audiences and make them actionable from an audience extension or selling account-based ads on your own website perspective. If you are a B2B advertiser or vendor looking to run ads, hopefully I've demonstrated some of the science that we've been building and some of the ways I believe we're best in class at doing that. Or maybe slightly more off-piste, if you're looking to analyze some of your existing ads, we could kind of help do that with a view to maybe kind of doing some of that smarter. And then finally, I'm the chief product officer, so I'm tasked with kind of thinking a bit bigger for our business. And the green one is kind of where that potentially comes in. So we're investigating a more decentralized model to our entire stack, including Matomo. So while today's talk is very much focused on what we're doing for B2B, and we're still very much thinking about that from the green quadrant point of view, this also could work for anybody else who works in kind of quite strong niches, whether it's health, automotive, etc. We're exploring decentralizing our whole stack into a licensable model, which would include our user interface, our Jetstream navigator, and journey products, all kind of pieced together in a way that can be run on your own AWS or other kind of hosted infrastructure, or we can run it for you, and having managed service kind of campaign layers that sit over the top. So we're trying to think bigger picture in terms of kind of where we believe data and all of this is kind of going. And if there's any opportunities to collaborate, or anyone listening that thinks you've been building something that could be interesting for kind of B2B around the Matomo ecosystem, my contact details are on one of my earlier slides. It's mike@FunneFuel.io, and I'd love to connect. And then Ronan, kind of quickly, moving on to my final slide and just opening the floor up really. If anybody's got any Q&A questions that you'd like to ask me, or anything that I might be able to answer, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mike. So in terms of questions, well, I'm going to start with this one. Do you confirm that currently the product is not yet launched? I mean, there's nothing that you can demo to us today?
So in terms of kind of where we're at, so we have essentially got a beta product of the user interface, which is those screens that I've kind of flashed up. Okay. We operationally are live with a standard kind of Matomo kind of dashboard. So that's kind of like the journey product as we use it in the moment, which our team are heavily using, and that's kind of got our B2B data in it. So we kind of inject company data into that, the 30 million company database, using kind of signals like IP. So when a user goes on a website and the IP address is disclosed, if we recognize the IP range is belonging to one of the companies that we track, then we're able to overlay that and kind of create Matomo segments around companies. And we do that using the custom dimensions within Matomo. And then our navigator and Jetstream products are very much live and operational, but our fully fledged user interface that kind of stitches it all together is going to be a 2025 product.
Okay. I have one curiosity question. So in the screenshot that you show us, clearly what struck me the most is, let's say, the design in itself. I just wanted to know if how did you succeed to end up with this result? I mean, was it that difficult to change the design of the current Matomo user interface to make it more, let's say, fashionable?
Well, I worked with a third-party UX UI agency to help me imagine that designing. So the process I went through was a fairly typical kind of product process first, which was a user storyboarding exercise where I went through in minute detail, kind of thinking about, as a user, I want to be able to do A, B, C, D, E in the FunneFuel dashboard. And that was taking into account all that I know from the programmatic media buying side of things in terms of the kind of the data that you would expect to have in a programmatic report and all the stuff that's been asked of our team. And then obviously we had a really good head start in terms of analytics visualization, in terms of what Matomo has already across a few of those different UI skins or kind of templates that can be uploaded. So we kind of took our time kind of going through all of those in detail to kind of get a bit of a sense. And then from there, really, I'll take no further credit, really, apart from going on to weekly calls to see the progress, but over about a 6 to 10 week process, really, that we went through with this UX UI agency, a company called User Active, based out of Barcelona. We just had a really wonderful experience working with that team to help us dream up what the next version of the FunneFuel platform is going to look like. So yeah, really, it was a mix of our knowledge internally, but then the design skills of an agency that we worked with to help us kind of come to those screenshots.
Okay. You mentioned that you are evolving within the open source ecosystem. I was wondering if maybe I understood it wrong, but I was wondering if that's the case. Are there any community plugins for Matomo that your company developed, which will be released or who have been released on the marketplace of Matomo? Or did I understood it wrongly?
We haven't yet released anything into the marketplace. We have the potential to release the widgets that we have developed for kind of showing the company level data, which is on a kind of like bigger strategic roadmap to kind of be more involved in giving back to that community. But what I will say in general is that our model around Matomo, including the fact that we're hosting it, managing the kind of the infrastructure, we're not upfront charging for any of the kind of tools that we've built around Matomo. Our revenue monetization model in FunneFuel is linked to the advertising buying that we do on behalf of our clients. So if anybody's listening and feels like they could benefit from any of those views or benefit from any of that data, then do feel free to kind of reach out to me on the contact details that I've shared, because that could be the impetus to kind of make these widgets available into the community, or to kind of let them have a play and help us iterate around what we've been building to.
Okay. We do have a question in the chat, which is a great one, because that's as well one, let's say, the next question that I wanted to ask you. So I give the credit to Evan. So Evan is asking you, what are the top 3 wishlist feature requests that would help you the most? So let's say, what would you need to have into Matomo that you currently don't have?
Very good question. And honestly, not one that I don't feel like we've been constrained with Matomo, as in, I think the platform's so flexible. The key requirement for us was around the ability to get our data in and then back out again via the APIs. And the platform's kind of really very comprehensive, particularly with kind of all the upgrades that can be added in. One area that I think kind of as a wish list or kind of a capability piece, which would be really interesting to explore, would be thinking about identity, which is kind of a massive topic really in the kind of programmatic advertising ecosystem, for example. And what does the world look like when third-party cookies have fully deprecated and gone away? What are the identity solutions which can help bridge the old capability of kind of cookies for kind of providing continuity and kind of handshakes to kind of transfer data? And in the programmatic world, we work with a bunch of these unique identifiers. So there's companies like ID5. There's a bunch of kind of more open source technologies like the UID project that Trade Desk have kind of worked towards. So I think if there was a really big wish list for me, it would be support within Matomo for ideally as many of these kind of unique identifiers as possible, because they provide then a tighter bridge to some of the media buying that we do. So when we buy ad impressions programmatically using some of these unique identifiers, then we have to do a whole load of IP address joining to try and understand the audience that we were buying against when we were using a unique identifier. Whereas if some of these unique identifiers were additionally running behind Matomo, then it would help kind of really align those audiences. So I don't think I necessarily have 3 things on my wish list, but I'd have one which I think is pretty big there, because there's about 400 of those different unique identifiers in the market, and it probably boils down to about 10% of them, give or take 35, 40 or so globally, that have kind of got the most significance. And of those, 5 or 6 that are kind of real power players in the kind of unique identity space. So yeah, bringing some of my programmatic hat and thinking into the world of analytics, I think that would be the one big one. If there was a magic switch that suddenly meant Matomo had full support for those UIDs, then that would be brilliant.
Okay, and maybe one last question, because this one is surprising me all the time. It's like, you are located in the UK based on your accent. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. UK, for a long time period, clearly there was no demand at all when it comes to public website. It just started with the new, let's say, guidance when it comes to cookie, so let's say cookie-less tracking. But UK and US markets, I don't know why, but for Matomo, has always been either internet analytics market or either B2B market. And my question is the following one: is why Matomo is so attractive for B2B businesses? Is it because it's a free software analytics solution which is just here, which allow you to easily take it, plug it on any system, and you don't have to purchase it, and then it's giving already a big added value to your current information system? And because B2B, let's say, does not really care about, let's say, the fancy part of the software in terms of look and feel, but as all the features are here, it makes the perfect solution. And I really would like to have your view about this part.
Yeah, I think Matomo has very low barriers to entry for testing, and I think, as was touched on in a previous session, when you really kind of invest and engage in the platform, then and you kind of go down the route of self-hosting and kind of building around it and all that kind of stuff, then obviously that kind of investment journey and kind of capabilities internally kind of grows and grows. But with Matomo Cloud, there's the opportunity to kind of really, at a very low touch point, come in and do some testing and learning, which is what we did. We kind of tested around the cloud because you could just flick it on, and it's kind of no more difficult to get going than something like a Google Analytics, and you can start to kind of understand. And I would suspect around that kind of B2B user base that there is increasing awareness, and it is increasing over the past 12 months or so, around the problem of sampling of data that's going on within GA. And just, I think that kind of breeds a little bit of a lack of trust in the solution, to be honest. It's easy conceptually to kind of go, well, of course it might bias a little bit in kind of Google traffic direction, make search and kind of organic search or paid search and all their kind of ad products like YouTube and the likes look brilliant, whether or not they are, and they don't need a lot of help to look good. They are very robust solutions, but it's just a trust issue that starts to kick in as soon as you hear that it's not dealing with 100% fact in terms of the traffic coming through, and there's sampling involved. And we know, and we've talked about this before, I think, between us, Ronan, around the disparity is not consistent, is it? It's kind of the difference between the real traffic volumes and the GA reported traffic volumes is actually on a sliding scale that can shift between 20% different and 50% different. So it's not even consistently wrong. It's kind of just all over the place. And I just think in B2B, they are, in a heightened sense, very aware that they have small audiences that are particularly high value. Because when it's B2B transactions, they are potentially worth billions of dollars. And a pretty small kind of B2B transaction is going to be worth, $1 million+ dollars. So they're high value, but not loads of them going on by any standard kind of rules. You're not going to have, kind of millions and millions of sales of $1 million plus a day going on. You're trading off kind of size of transaction for volume of transactions. So therefore, you just need to be very accurate and zoomed in. And I think Matomo's got the tools for doing that, the log level data, and if you really go into town on that, you've got the chance to kind of run your session recordings and your heat maps and all that within an analytics. And really from an account-based perspective, you can get an incredibly zoomed in view in Matomo if you kind of know what you're doing to get the data in, which you simply can't replicate with a lot of other analytics platforms that are out there. So it doesn't surprise me that B2B is a pretty big segment.
Okay.